Good afternoon, everybody. I think it's 2 o'clock and I'll make a start. Good afternoon from a nearly sunny Vale of Belvoir. Looking out my window, the sun is trying to break through, so I hope you can give up time this afternoon. Thank you very much for everyone logging on. As some of you know, I'm the head of agriculture at Duncan and Topless. We've got 11 offices across the East Midlands, very strong in agriculture. Across the firm, we've got 400 team members, including people at Castlegate, and our legal services team and our payroll team are doing very well. But it's the bookkeeping team I'd like to champion this afternoon, because they're going to help me talk through the Xero and all its possibilities that you're all using and the learning curve that you're all on. I certainly have jumped on the learning curve last year on Xero, and I know some of you have been on for a lot longer than that. We've got some great expertise here. Simon Moody is going to lead and do a lot of the talking when I've finished. Sharon Ovington is also a very expert Xero operator, and we've got many other people in the team who are very good at helping you. Obviously, I myself, we've got lots of agricultural clients. We've had traditionally people being on Sage or Farm Plan or key accounts, but when the VAT became Making Tax Digital came in for VAT and people were still manual, it was the Xero package that we thought was the simplest and the one that we would lead people towards and give them some training to get them on. So I'm hoping it's all going well. Certainly I've seen some results coming through, and obviously the first year there were a few teething issues, but by the second and third year people are really starting to use the system properly and enjoying it, I'm hoping. I certainly started on a family business that I look after, moved it from Farm Plan last year, and I'm enjoying the different menus and the way that things are coded up, and the fact that Xero remembers where things went last time. There's less data inputting. So I think when you're talking about so many transactions per month, data inputting into Farm Plan takes maybe 4 hours, and I think with Xero it might take 3 hours. So I think on balance there's that advantage, and there are some other advantages that will come through. We also like obviously having access to your data with being on the cloud, is that I can certainly log on if someone rings me up and they want to talk about they're going to buy a new tractor or trade in a tractor. I can look and see what other fixed asset purchases they've made that year and be able to advise on the timing and the sort of financing a lot easier when I can see what else they bought that year, because it's all right telling me, but when I can see it in black and white, I've actually got a good picture of what people have done. And I also looking through sundry receipts and sundry payments, because every business is different and everybody has different sources of income. So if there's a one-off a new source of income, it's good for us to have a look at before we start doing the accounts, because we can discuss all the expenses that might relate to that enterprise if you started a new enterprise. So it's great for that sort of thing. And obviously I look at RPA receipts, because everybody now is getting lots of different grants, hopefully, and sustainable farming incentive payments, countryside stewardship payments from the revenue from the RPA. And it's interesting for us to have a look on Xero when we can see what your new sources are, so when we can have discussions about how we code those up when we do the final accounts. So lots of good information I'm enjoying with all you guys on Xero now. There is obviously, to take it a stage further, the double entry system is great. You can do your VAT on a monthly or a quarterly basis. We can then do the fixed assets and the stock to get you a set of year-end accounts. You can take it a stage further. There's management accounting that can be done. There's budgeting that can be done, and there's a product called Figured, which Simon will go into in more detail, which can be bolted on with obviously paying a little bit more. But it is a very good tool, used properly and set up properly, if you want to take the business more sophisticated and get more management accounting information from your Xero. But that's nearly enough of me. I will then facilitate some questions later, but hopefully I can pass over to Simon for the detail of the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, as Mark said, my name's Simon and I work for the outsourced finance team at Duncan and Topless. So the purpose of today's webinar is to highlight the common issues that the accounts team see when preparing your year-end accounts, And why we're doing this is to help improve the accuracy of your figures so that they mean more to you, to improve the efficiency of preparing the year-end accounts for the accounts team. And if you're coding things properly, it will save additional charges, meaning that the accounts team aren't going to have to correct the information that's presented to you. At the end of this webinar, our objectives are that you understand the difference between capital expenses versus operating expenses, that the bank account reconciles and agrees to the bank statement, that you have reviewed your age receivables and age payables ready for the year-end accounts team. You can find or have a chance of finding duplicate transactions, that you can do an accounts transaction review in Xero, and that you understand why there are Xero lock dates. So capital expenses. What is a capital expense? It's money a business spends to acquire or upgrade its fixed assets, such as buildings, vehicles, equipment, or land. In most cases, a capital expense will be a major financial decision for the business. Capital expenditure is shown on the balance sheet, with the depreciation element released to the profit and loss account in line with the depreciation rate of that asset. You can determine whether a capital expense for equipment by using one of our simple rules, which is it more than £500? This is generally our cutoff for equipment to decide whether it's capital. However, that might not show the full history. For example, you've bought two pieces of equipment at £600. One is a chainsaw and one is a laptop. The chainsaw you might expect to only have a useful life of 1 year, whereas you would expect the laptop to last at least 3 years. In this case, you would classify the laptop as a piece of capital equipment, but you would classify the chainsaw as an operating expense because of its short lifespan. So the £500 limit is a limit that we would suggest, but other considerations need to come into it as well. Other examples of operating expenses that appear on the profit and loss report are electricity, cleaning, stationery, postage, wages, repairs and renewals. And these tend to be the ongoing expenses for running the business. So what do we see clients doing wrong? Often they allocate all expenses into one code. They often, if they don't know where to code it, they'll code everything to sundry expenses, and then we have to analyze that out. They will put purchases of new equipment to capital expenditure regardless of the amount, instead of considering whether they need to go to repairs and renewals. They are inconsistent with posting. For example, 1 month, Joe blogs a mechanic, they might post to motor expenses, and the next month we might see it in general repairs and renewals. And or they're inconsistent with the VAT codings, so using 0 rated and 20% VAT on expenses for the same supplier. So there is software out there that can help with the processing. Dext is one such application, but there are others, including Xero have their own in-house product. Dext is a document processing system that enables you to send bills and receipts via scanning the document, photographing, or emailing. It extracts some of the data for you, ready for you to code and review the document before publishing it to Xero. Because it integrates with Xero, it's got your chart of accounts there ready for you to use and analyze. You can set supplier rules up. So In the case of Joe Blogs, you know it's always going to go to motor expenses, so you can set it so that it remembers that rule. It analyzes the expense and then you publish to Xero when you're happy, and it produces a copy of the invoice or receipt onto the transaction in Xero, meaning that there's no need to send this information in at the year end. Where purchase invoices are used with the reference, it will identify duplicate invoices and stop publishing those through. So let's have a deeper delve into Xero and have a look. So this is a Xero account, S&S Farming Solutions Limited, that we've created for the purpose of this demonstration. Before I go in, we're just going to go on the left-hand side, we're going to go to settings and we're going to check users. We're coming in here because Xero have changed their account settings, and what you're looking for is you need access to the reports. If you haven't got access to the reports and file MTD VAT returns, you will need to contact one of the managed users on the account to give you this access. The other part before I look at the bank account is I'm just going to go to accounting and chart of accounts. When we're talking about coding and people putting it to sundry expenses, if you need to add a code, this is where you would come and you would click on add account up here and you can select the account type. So usually overhead for an expense. You can give it a code and a name. Because you can search by name, it's the name that's all important for this transaction. You can then give it a default VAT rate, which is there as a suggestion. Also in here, I'm just going to take you to the director's loan account, but some of you might have capital introduced, or if you're a partnership, or and we're going to click on this account. And what I want to do is tick this box here to enable payments to this account, which will become more obvious later on. Okay, so I'm going back into the dashboard and we're going to look at the bank account. And my bank account says reconcile 3 items. The year end for this company is the 31st of January. So we're getting it ready to send to the accountants. So I'm going to click on my reconcile 3 items. And you'll see I've still got one bank item here that relates to the period prior to the 31st of January. So the year end that I'm preparing to give to the accountants. And it's for a credit card. So it's quite easy, this one. I'm just going to transfer it to the credit card account and I can click OK. And that's great. My bank account now reconciles. But that isn't the full story. We need to delve deeper to make sure that my statement balance agrees to my bank account. What we see frequently for most clients with bank feeds is that occasionally the bank feed goes wrong. It duplicates transactions importing, or it misses transactions out. So I'm just going to go back a screen a minute. So what we can do is we can run a reconciliation report, which is available just to the left of your manage account. If we click on the reconciliation report, it brings us through to the bank account screen. And here in the drop down, I can select which year I want, and I want last financial year. I can also click on here. This is a brand new feature that's only appeared today, but you can put your end bank balance in. So I know at the end of January, my balance was £9,197.47, and I can click update. What it shows me is that Xero thinks my statement balance is 9,206.15, but my actual bank balance is 9197.47. So I've got a difference of £8.68 that I need to investigate, that I need to find. Now, in traditional systems, you'd probably have to go through and tick the bank off to find where this difference is. But in Xero, there are a couple of faster ways of doing it. So I'm going to change my statement date that I'm running this reconciliation report to the 31st of December. And my bank balance at that date was 5,005.83. And I'm going to click update. And as you can see, I've still got the same difference, £8.68. I'm now going to change it to the 15th of December. And at that date, my bank balance was 16,249.73. Going to click update, and now you can see that my statement balance and per Xero and my bank balance match each other. So we now have identified the period where this transaction, where the error is. So if I change this once more up to the 21st, and my balance is 8570.97. You can see I've got my £8.68 difference here. I know now pretty much that my difference is on the 21st of December. So I'm going to go back into dashboard, and by clicking on control and clicking on dashboard, it's opening a new tab for me at the top of the screen. So I don't need to leave that report. I'm going to click on the current account, and I'm going to go to bank statements. And in here I can search, and I'm going to search for the 21st of the 12th, 22. I'm going to select the exact date, and I'm going to click search. And here's my difference. My £8.68, the transaction's been deleted. This one's a transaction that's been deleted on Xero. It could be that you would tick the statements off for that day and find something hasn't been imported, that it's been missed out. And if you had that situation, you would click on the Manage Account button. You would click on Import a Statement. You would download the CSV template from here. And then you would click through and fill this spreadsheet in with your amounts, save it, and then come back into Xero, select your file, and click Next and import the transactions. But today I don't need to. All I need to do is click on this and restore the transaction. But for some reason, Xero's not playing ball. If it should let me restore that transaction, and then I'd be able to refresh this bank statement, and it would show that my difference was Xero. Okay, so let's go back to run it at the financial year end. So as well as that, it's going to show me some other transactions that haven't been cleared. So my outstanding payments, the top one is a cheque for £240. We issued it on the 24th of December. What it's telling me is that this hasn't cleared the bank yet. And then I've got a post office payment that's gone to the current account of £3.20. and it's saying this hasn't been reconciled. Well, we know other than that £8.68 that everything in the bank reconciles. So we know this £3.20 isn't there. And actually, we know that we've paid it personally. So it shouldn't actually be in the bank account. So I'm going to click on that transaction from here, and I can click on options and I can click on remove and redo. That's going to break the link to that payment and take me back to this screen, which is the unpaid bill screen. And I said earlier, when we marked the payment account for payment, because I paid that personally, I can now click in here to the 16th of January, and I can select my loan account because I've paid for it, and I can click on add payment. So that's a credit to me now. And it takes me back into the screen. So as well as making sure everything's reconciled, it's really important to check that your statement balance agrees. So now we're going to go and look at the aged receivables. So you can look at your invoices that are due to be paid by clicking on business and going down to it, invoices, and clicking on the awaiting payment tab. And here you can see everything that's due to be paid, and you can click on any of these dates or your two to sort the columns into a different order. But the report I want to use is in reports, and you can see I've got some favorites down here, but I'm going to click on reports just in case it's not in your favorites, and scroll down, and I've got my age receivables detailed report down here. So, although this is a great thing to do at the year end, we'd probably also recommend that you do this periodically, usually in line with your VAT, just to make sure everything is current. So again, I've got my date range here, and I can click on end of last financial year. Here I can age the periods. So I can choose that I want it to be 6 periods of 1 month, 6 being the magic number, where we can consider if we're going to get that debt, writing it off as a bad debt. Instead of aging by due date, I want to choose by invoice date. And then I can click update. So here you can see that customer 1, I've got 2 invoices in the older column, and we'd want to consider whether we're going to receive these invoices, whether they're still going to be due. Again, by holding down control on any of these numbers, I can click and it'll open as a new tab at the top of the screen. If we considered this to be a bad debt, I could click on my invoice options and add a credit note. The difference being on the credit note, instead of analysing it out to crop sales, we'd change it to bad debts as a 0 rated expense, and then click approve. When I update that, still going to show on the system because I've written it off as of today's date. If I was writing it off at the year end, I could click on it and I could go to invoice options and edit, and I would change the credit note date to the 31st of January. So in addition to that, I know that customer 2 usually pays promptly. I know that I should be getting this income. He pays at the end of the current month. So I'm wondering why I've got this invoice here. So I'm just going to click into it. And by clicking on the customer 2 here, it's going to take me to the contact page so I can review it. And here you can see the history. You can see that the invoice for February is paid the end of February. January's was paid in January, but December's hasn't been paid. Either we've misallocated it, which would mean going through and checking the bank, or more in this case, more probably that actually the customer hasn't received this invoice. So it prompted me to go and look at it, and then I could send the invoice out to say, you've forgotten to pay this. So that's your age receivables. We're now going to go and have a look at your age payables. So I'm going to go into accounting and reports again, and this time down to my age payables detail. Again, I'm going to change this to the end of last financial year. I'm going to leave my periods, but I'm going to age by invoice date, and I'm going to click update. So we're going to look down. We're interested in anything in the older column, but you can also see that farming supplies, I've got a bill for 53742. I've got a credit note that hasn't been applied yet. So we can tidy the ledger up. So to allocate the credit note, you'd click on the 53742, and again by holding down the control, I can come back to this report. I can click on the credit note options, and I can click on allocate credit. So in here now, I can allocate a credit against any outstanding bill, and I can click it. And now if I update my report, that will have disappeared off it. Now, I've got a really old invoice here for £643. It was actually pre the bank account being set up, but I know it's not outstanding. It was paid personally. So again, we can click on this transaction, and we can come in here and mark the bill as being paid. So I'm going to mark it as being paid on the 30th of April, and it was my co-director Sharon that paid for it, and add the payment. It really is about making sure everything on your ledger is due. And then we've got the local council here, £130 outstanding. This should again have been paid off by the 31st of January. So we wouldn't expect to see anything on this. So I'm going to hold down and look at this bill. Okay, and looking down, we can see it's paid monthly, but we can see that we're missing the payment for December. Now, there are several different ways you can look at how it was allocated. There's a global search up here on the spyglass, and I could put £130 in here. And it would show me all the results that match £130, and down here I can see there's a spend money. Or alternatively, providing I know it's been allocated to the right contact, I can click on the local council. And this is going to show me a history of the activity, and here's that spend money for £130, and actually it should have been allocated against this invoice. So I'm going to click on view. And up here on this spend money transaction, then I've got options and I can click on remove and redo. That's going to put it back into the bank account for me to reconcile. And there it is. It's now found that unpaid invoice, so I can now match it off and reconcile it. So they're just some of the ways of finding and checking your transactions. And if I update that now, that's going to disappear. What I also want to show you, and this applies to all reports, is if I've changed this report and I want to use this format again in the future, rather than having to click through my settings and change it, I can come down to the bottom right hand side and there's a save as, and I can save this report as a custom report. So I'm just going to change this and save it as HP Payables Detailed SRM. And now if I go back to my reports section, instead of running it down here, I'd come to my custom report and there's the report there. So it will remember the formatting changes that I've made. So we're now going to go and look at the account transactions review report. So it's in accounting and reports again, because all your reports are in the same place. And then if we scroll down, it's towards the bottom on the left hand side, and we've got the accounts transaction review report. Okay, so to start off with, we can choose the accounts we want to view. I'm going to select all, but there's some that I don't necessarily need to see, like the bank, the credit card. They're not really going to add any information for me, the VAT account. So I'm going to remove some of these accounts. So to do that, I can start to type account, and I'm going to remove my accounts receivable, my current account, my credit card, my accounts payable, and I'm also going to remove my VAT account. I'm going to click on my date range and select this last financial year again. Then in my columns, I'm going to change the columns that I want to see. And in particular, I'm particularly keen to see the VAT rate and the VAT rate name. And I'm going to click on update. Mark likes to group differently, his report slightly differently, but I'm just going to click on update. So what we've got is our account transactions. So it tells us the nominal code that it's gone to. It tells us the source of the transaction. So let's define a spend money is created from the bank, either via a bank rule, where you've created it to recognize something that comes through on the bank statement to automatically suggest where it wants to post, or you've used the create function to send the monies straight into your nominal code. A payable invoice is your age creditor, your traditional bill for going on, and that will sit in your creditor's ledger until it's paid off. Receivable invoice is your customer, and then you've got a receive money, which is again straight from the bank using the create code. What you can see down here is you've got your VAT rate and your VAT rate name. So this is telling you how it's going to look. So you can scroll down here, and we use this report not just at the year end, but when we're submitting VAT returns for clients or we're doing a VAT review, we check this report for the account transactions. So we're going to scroll down. There's 145 transactions. So I want to see all those, so I can change the number of items that it's going to show me per page. So I'm going to click on 200. And we're just looking down to see whether it makes sense. So just scrolling down. And here in haulage, you can see that I've got some payable invoices here. and we've got a spend money. Now, I wouldn't expect to see a spend money transaction necessarily on this account, because I normally get an invoice. So we're going to go and investigate this further. So I'm going to click on my spend money here and open it as a new transaction. And by clicking on the company name, it's going to take me into the contact. And here you can see that we've got the bill for £548.17 and the spend money's gone on for £548.16. Because there's been a penny difference, it hasn't found the match when we're matching it. And we've created a spend money, so we're duplicating the expense. So we need to remove this spend money and allocate it against this invoice. To do that, I'm going to click on View. And I'm going to come to my options and click on Remove and Redo. That's removed the transaction and it's put it back in my bank now for me to reconcile that item. Okay, so now I'm going to allocate that against the payment. So I'm going to click on Find and Match. I'm going to search for my invoice. And there it is. I'm going to mark it as being paid. It tells me that I'm out by a penny. I don't want to post that penny. I don't want to leave it on the ledger. So I'm going to make an adjustment, and I'm going to make a minor adjustment of minus 0.1. And it'll now let me match the totals and I can reconcile that amount. Okay, so going back to my account transactions now, if I update that, we will have lost that spend money. It's now been allocated against that ledger. Also, looking down further, you can see in subcontractors here, we've got a potential miscoding. So we've got the VAT rate has been coded as 0 rated here, but on this one, we've claimed 20% VAT on expenses. Actually, this subcontractor is not VAT registered. We've coded this incorrectly, so we need to go and amend it. Again, we can do that from the screen by holding down the Control tab, Control and clicking on it. We open a new tab. We click on Options, Edit Transaction, and we can change the VAT to 0 rated expenses and update. What you would find if we did this on bills to pay, and I'm going to go to a bill, if we analysed a bill and it has been paid already, if I clicked on edit, you would find that I can't change the tax rate. It's locked. In this case, what we would have to do is remove the payment associated to this bill before we could go and edit and change the tax rate. So to do that, you would click on the payment down here and you would click on your options and remove and redo. Then you'd be able to edit the invoice total and change the VAT amount. Okay, and there's our rounding difference come in for the penny that I've just changed on that invoice. Okay, so in summary, we've looked at Xero. We've looked at how you can check your bank account and make sure that your bank account statement matches the account statement in Xero. We've looked at your age receivables and payables to review those and make sure that everything's current. We've checked for duplicate transactions and shown you the account transactions review. Some of you may have seen this when you've tried to post, that your accounts are locked. We will lock the dates in Xero when we start to prepare your year-end accounts. That means we don't want anything posting back into that period. If you have got something that needs to go into a locked period, you need to contact your accounts team to find out how they want to deal with it. But please don't just unlock the dates and go back in and make the posting. So I say I'm part of the outsourced finance service team. We have a large team, not just within outsourced finance, but within Duncan and Topless, of people that can support you on Xero. Our standard support is charged at £110 an hour plus VAT. We do offer a service where we can run a health check on your Xero data. Our toolkit is packed with functionality that helps us clean, track and analyze your data, and it scores your data on a percentage, allowing us to produce a report that tells you what needs to be corrected. It features things like miscodings, so where a contact has been coded to different nominal codes or different VAT rates used, and at the end of it, we sense check it to make sure that the suggestions are reasonable, that they are errors, because there are cases where codes will be coded to different transactions, will be treated differently. It also makes suggestions for possible duplicates. If this is a service that you'd be interested in, you can discuss it with your account manager or contact OFS at duntop.co.uk. Mark said I would mention Figured. Figured is probably more a discussion for another time, but it is an add-on application that can be linked to Xero and can help with your cropping for fields and things like that, and establish how successful that crop's been. So I'm going to hand over, and if there's any questions, we will try to answer them.
Thank you very much, Simon. I'm also ably assisted by William, who's in our marketing team, and he's going to coordinate any questions. So have you had any through while we've been listening to Simon, William? If you haven't, don't worry, because I've got a question, Simon, please. Can I start the ball rolling? You were very interesting about the director's loan account accepting debits and credits. To me, I know what a debit and credit is, but in Xero, do you have to go into those current liability codes and current asset codes to make them accept both sides of the?
So when you're posting, you would normally post it as a direct spend money or receive money. So it's going to be largely driven by the bank or a bill that's being put on. But what it enables is it enables you to use that account as a bank account. So if you've got an invoice that's been received and actually you banked it privately, or you've got an expense that you paid privately, it just enables you to use that as a bank account without creating a bank account in the more formal way. So it lets you mark as a payment, and it can be a great way to use control accounts to help with your management of data through Xero.
But you have to go through chart of accounts to set it up.
Yeah.
Okay, that was what I just wanted clearing up. Thank you. So are we seeing a question coming up on the screen, Simon?
Yeah. So it says, if I amend a transaction with VAT on it after the return has been submitted, do I need to manually adjust the next VAT return? No, it will automatically pull through to the next VAT return. Providing you've already published one in Xero before, it will automatically pull through. So it will show as a late transaction, and it will show the transaction being adjusted out and the new transaction that it's been replaced with.
Yes, there's a clear audit trail of that. That's
yeah.
the main thing.
So we've got another question. How do you treat closing stocks and stores? So you would post a journal to adjust these. Let me go back in and show you where to do this. So I'm still showing my screen, I think. So I'm going to show you this. This is going to depend on your user access. So you need advisor access generally to get to the journals tab. Standard access, I think you can get to the journals, but you go to it a slightly different way. So you'd post a manual journal and you create a new journal, and you would adjust your cost of sales account or your seeds or your fertilizers as it is. You'd credit those and then debit your stock account. You'd do it via a journal.
And you date at the year-end date, wouldn't you? And then
at the year-end date. There is actually another way of doing it in Xero. So that would be the traditional way. For people that don't understand debit and credit, or that don't want to do that, there is a way of doing it via a bill. So everything in Xero has to have a contact, but I could call this stock. And I could post my stock adjustment as 1,000, and I could change this, or 100 even, to be no tax. And I could post this to my closing stock. And I could post my stock adjustment here, 1, and I could post this as -100 to my seeds. So doing exactly the same as my journal, I'm posting a nil balance on a bill, but I've got £100 going to my stock account and -100 going to my seeds to reduce my seeds valuation by 100. And I could also do it that way as well as using a journal. And that will post as a nil bill. Again, at the year-end date. So I could post that at the 31st of January.
The other big journal to mention, Simon, would be the opening balance adjustments, which come through from us at the year end and are posted on the year-end date through the journal screen.
Yeah.
Which obviously the more sophisticated clients will know what I'm talking about. Some of the they'll be using journals for fuel scale charge, will they? How are the fuel
they could be using journals for fuel scale charge. Again, that would be through the manual journals, but if they're using fuel scale charge, they would already, or should already, be posting those. But again, yeah, that's so. It all depends on your access as to whether you can see this in the advanced settings, whether you can see this manual journals post. Yeah, and if you can't, it might be that you need to contact someone with managed user rights if you need to be posting journals to give you access to this feature.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to gauge who's listening, but I hope that satisfies people who, are familiar with journals, because it is a
we've
powerful
tool. A couple more questions, unless I've missed some. How do I attach a PDF to a bill? So if you're doing it manually, you can come down to bills to pay. You can click on your bill, and up here there's a paper copy, a paper symbol. and you can click on here and you can upload a file or drag and drop a file into here, which can attach a copy of your bill. If you're using Dext or one of the other solutions, HubDoc, for example, it will automatically, when it comes through, this is where you'll be able to see a copy of your bill on the system. If you are using the system to scan your invoices on, you don't need to keep your books and records. You don't necessarily need to bring those into your accountant, because they would be able to access the receipt from here. What I would say as well, from a year-end point of view, is we often don't get descriptions in here, but for rates, anything that's got a date scanned, it's great for the accounts team if it tells you the range of dates it covers. So obviously for rates, it's going to be 1st of April to 31st of March. But if it's the insurance, the period that the insurance is going to cover is a really good thing. Or electricity, again, the period that the electricity bill covers. So we've got another question which says, my bookkeeper is going off on maternity leave. Yes, we do offer temporary bookkeeping services. That's something you can speak to your team, client account manager about, and they could provide a quote. Yeah, it looks like
Any other
Mark's
questions, Sam, can you see?
No, there aren't any others.
No, that was a good range of questions. That was great. Now, I think
you're on mute, Mark.
Sorry, I thought it was going so well. Anyway, yes, I was talking about benchmarking and dairy clients, and there are a lot of dairy their accounts are done on Xero, and then the quantities that get put on to give you management accounts information. So obviously the calves up into the dairy and their culls and all that sort of thing. So there is a lot of information that can be bolted on as far as quantity.
Yeah.
To Xero. So about for their own business and take. So you've gone through the learning curve of Xero, and there's more can be done with the data.
Yeah.
And benchmarking, the industry loves benchmarking. So welcome to hear anybody with any questions and suggestions that are please get in touch.
Okay, we've got one more question about how do I if I purchase a new machine and trade in an old one, how do I post a trade in against a new machine if it needs to be shown as a sale for output of that? So we'll quickly have a look at this. So you could put your bill in here. And I'm just going to call it my Farming Supplies Limited. So I'm going to purchase a tractor, and it's going to cost me 100,000. I'm going to post it to my equipment cost account with 20% VAT on expenses, and I'm going to trade in a tractor. And I'm getting 20,000 for my trade-in. So I'm going to enter that because that's an income on this bill. I'm going to post it as a negative amount to reduce the amount that I need to pay. For purposes of this demo, I'm going to post it to equipment of disposals with 20% VAT on income. So that's going to then leave me the £80,000 to pay, and it's going to post this VAT rate is what determines where it's going to go into Xero on the VAT return. So that will go to box 4 and that will appear in box 1. And that's my balance to pay.
Ask a question. I'll just ask one question.
Yep.
If that was financed on hire purchase, what would you then do? Set up a hire purchase for 80,000.
So I could add a new line. And post it to my hire purchase account with no VAT, leaving that balance there, and then I'd code my hire purchase payments as they're received to my hire purchase account, and this would then show that there's a nil invoice on the return. So that's how I would recommend posting it.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay.
You used up the allotted hour. Shall we? Thank you very much, Simon, for all your hard work you put into this behind the scenes, and Sharon as well. And information from Duncan and Soplis on Xero. Please get in touch. We look forward to hearing from you. I'm looking outside. It was when I logged on. So have a rest of the afternoon and have a lovely day. Thank you for attending. Bye.